this is the evening sky right here over Gaza City, which last night rumbled under furious bombing by Israel, some of the heaviest bombing thus far. So much for John Kerry, so much for the ceasefire plea he had issued just 1 hour before. No two ways about it. John Kerry taking his lumps. He acknowledged as much today.
Look, I've taken hits before in politics. I'm not worried about that. This is not about me. This is about Israel and Israel's right to defend itself and our strong support for Israel's right to defend itself, but about whether or not there is a way forward that could avoid the loss of soldiers for Israel and the loss of civilians in everywhere.
Talks about taking his political hits. He's really hearing it from U.S. ally Russia. U.S. ally Israel, forgive me. The direct quote, Kerry ruined everything. This is an Israeli columnist writing yesterday about the secretary's standing ceasefire plan, which unidentified officials in Jerusalem reportedly derided as, quote unquote, a strategic terrorist attack. That is what Israelis called Kerry's peace plan, a strategic terrorist attack. David Ignatius knows this territory better than pretty much anyone else. He's a longtime correspondent, now associate editor and columnist for The Washington Post. David Ignatius, first of all, welcome to you. And
thank you,
wanted to begin with this piece in the Post. The headline is John Kerry's big blunder in seeking an Israel-Gaza ceasefire. Question number one to you, what is the big blunder?
The mistake that I think Secretary Kerry made when he began his effort to get a ceasefire 10 days ago, roughly, was that after meeting initial resistance with his idea of mediating through Egypt, rather than double down on that, he instead turned to two countries that really are allies of Hamas, Turkey and Qatar, and began working with them to try to get the ceasefire. In the end, he didn't get the ceasefire. It fell apart very quickly last Friday and over the weekend, as we know, with this horrific war continuing. But in some ways more damaging, he, in the process, undercut not simply Israel, which is furious with him, as you said in your introduction, but also moderate Palestinians who had hoped that the Egypt approach would work, and other key friends of the United States in the Middle East, such as Saudi Arabia, such as Jordan, such as the United Arab Emirates. I've been talking to diplomats the last 2 days, and I hear real unhappiness with the way that Secretary Kerry went about this.
So it's the issue in going to Hamas's, we'll just call them friends, Turkey and Qatar, and to your point, solidifying the role of Hamas. This is what Israelis are saying. Also, in your piece here, you make multiple points saying that Secretary Kerry has erred in seeking a quick ceasefire. They want an end to the violence. I guess my question would be, how much time is there? I mean, how long, David, for example, before Hamas is all but wiped out? Because that's really, as so many have suggested, that is the ultimate goal from Israel.
Well, Israel has to decide whether it's prepared, as I say in the column, for a campaign that takes months, not the weeks that it's taken, that effectively means Israeli reoccupation of Gaza. I don't think there's much appetite for that. What I said in the column is that I think Secretary Kerry understands that the key here is to move to a new situation, not back to the old status quo, where Israel doesn't have to fight a war every 2 years. Palestinian civilians are not subject to the kind of bombing and difficulty that is their daily lot during this war.
Yeah.
And the way to do that is to empower moderate Palestinians and make them the center of this negotiation. It's not generally understood, but last April, Hamas agreed that the moderate Palestinian Authority, headed by Mahmoud Abbas, should come in as the governing authority in Gaza, and that's the way Secretary Kerry might have tried to negotiate this.
Secretary Kerry, President Obama, when they've come out publicly, made statements, both have essentially called on Israel to inflict fewer deaths on the civilians in Gaza. But the thrust of their statements, David, and it's been now 3 weeks since we've been watching all this fighting, is that the U.S. friend being Israel, absolutely has the right to defend itself. And that really seems to be what they're emphasizing. If you are Palestinian, whether you are in Gaza, whether you are in the West Bank, wherever, does it seem as though that the deck is stacked when the mediator, being the United States, happens to be your enemy's biggest ally? Are you following me there?
Well, if you listen to the commentary from Israel the last several days, you would not think that John Kerry and the United States are Israel's best friends and protectors. They're accusing Kerry of betrayal, of siding with Hamas and Hamas's friends against Israel. I think Palestinians are right to demand a change from the situation they've been living in. The reality is that can only happen if Gaza is effectively demilitarized of heavy weapons. And the question is how to use U.S. diplomacy to move in that direction. That's the opportunity Secretary Kerry had. I hope he takes it up again because, honestly, that's the way that this nightmare is going to end.